Alright, so I'm here with the Prius, and it's,
Jared, we can't hear you, man.
really?
Yeah, no, it's not a good audio take.
Alright, well, I'm Jared here with CarBuzz, and today I'm reviewing the 2018 Toyota Prius Prime. Would you look at it? Yikes. Yeah, Toyota really hasn't made this car a lot better looking over the years, but this new Prime model is a plug-in hybrid vehicle, which is a little bit different than a standard Prius. So today I'm going to show you inside and out of the Prius Prime and tell you what I like about it and a couple of things I don't like about it.
Inside the Prius Prime, I think the best way to categorize this interior is plastic, but interesting uses of plastic. Almost all of these dash materials, you've got this black plastic here, you've got this white plastic that people have told me looks like the trim on a boat. It's feels kind of cheap to the touch, but like Toyota has done a really interesting job styling this interior, so it does at least look really futuristic, more so than a normal Prius. And a lot of people have actually gotten and complimented Toyota on this interior. This is one of the more futuristic and interesting looking designs that Toyota has, at least on the interior. And the centerpiece of all of that is this big old touchscreen. It is optional on the Prius Prime. The higher trims have it, and I'm in the advanced trim, so obviously I have this big nice screen. I think it's pretty obvious that Toyota was trying to copy Tesla here with their large screen, although Toyota didn't really do a great job copying them. The big advantageous thing about the Tesla screen is how much you can do on it. You can have that screen as an internet browser, you can have it be a constant backup camera. It's really, really good for all of that. All this does is basically offer you more size than a normal Toyota display, which is a little bit disappointing. So if I go ahead and pull up my climate control, the big advantage is that now I can have my navigation up top and my climate control at the bottom, rather than have them both be kind of small. They're actually sort of full size now. So that's really the only big thing that this it offers in terms of any advantage. You can push menu. You do have an app suite, but it's sort of Toyota's basic Entune function, so it's tied to your phone, so you can get Pandora and things like that. Everything works fine on this display. I really have no huge issues with Toyota's Entune software, although in 2018 it is starting to feel just a little bit dated. I wish they had either Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Some of Toyota's models are getting it. This, unfortunately, does not have either yet. And the other big problem that I found with this whole system is these touch capacitive buttons on the side. They kind of look like they could be controls, but no, they are touch capacitive, so you can see I'm raising and lowering the temperature using these, and I'm not getting a physical response back from the button. So I kind of have to take my eyes off the road to look at how I'm changing the temperature, which is a little bit annoying. You can also change the temperature up here, which is controlled in this little steering wheel control here. So if I go to the climate control screen and tap OK, I can actually change the temperature here from the wheel, which is a little bit redundant given that you can do it right here. But it's actually a little bit less distracting for me to pull it up and do it with this rocker than it is to pull up temperature here and then have to control the fan speed using a touchscreen. Because as you can see on the side, there are no fan speed controls on either side for quick and easy access, and I adjust the fan speed a lot, so it is a little bit annoying to have to pull that up every time. Down here we have our controller. It is the same one you'll get on a normal Prius. It's very weird. Once you get used to it, though, it's really not too bad. You put your foot on the brake, and then you kind of move this over here for neutral. You move it down for drive. You can put it down here for B, which is your regen braking. If I go up, it's going to trigger the reversing camera, and it's going to trigger that, as I'm sure you can hear. That is a constant beep all the time that you are in reverse. There's no way to shut it off. It doesn't project from the outside, which would make sense in an electric car. You've got, pedestrians who possibly can't hear it coming. But no, it only beeps in here. And I've left it on this whole time so you can get a sense of just how annoying that is all the time. And again, you've got this huge giant screen. Only that much of it actually shows the rear display. I don't know, the rear view camera. I don't know why Toyota decided to have this big display and not utilize it properly. And then you just push that, shut up the reversing beeps, and put it in park. You do have your heated seat controls because we have the nice advanced trim here, although they're all the way down here. I guess it's not too bad of an issue because how often are you really fiddling with those? You do have a wireless charger here on this fully loaded Prius Prime, and here you have some of your drive controls. I'm going to talk about those later when we get out on the road with this car. Storage space, not terrible. You have your cup holders here and the QI wireless charger if you're not charging a phone on it. This is a pretty nice big area to store stuff. And again, all of the sort of readouts and displays, your speedo, your average MPG, all of that is controlled up here. Although I do have the head-up display in this advanced trim, which, you know, if you don't like looking over to the side to get your speedo, it's really nice to have it right in front of you. That's something I wish that the Tesla Model 3 did, actually, but it's not too bad. It's not too distracting. You get used to having the speedo up there instead of right in front of you. It's really not too big of a deal. The materials, even though most of them are plastic, some of the other materials, not that great either. Not the best Toyota has done, you know, a little bit cheap, but again, this is an eco car, so a lot of people aren't looking at it as a true luxury car. Here on the wheel, we do have some of our adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, we have our heated steering wheel, and some other functions like that. This is a very interesting interior, but it is far from perfect. So one interesting, kind of annoying feature that this Prius does is when I go ahead and turn off the power button, just wait for it. Yeah, so it does that every time you shut it off. I think it sounds sort of like a PBS special, like The More You Know. It's sort of like an informational, like educational program. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. And then when I go ahead and start it up, it's going to do a similar noise. I'm sure there's a way to turn this off in the settings, but I kind of left it on all week just to prove a point. And then the car drives up there and parked at the top of the screen. Super weird. Don't know why Toyota engineered that, but it did get on my nerves after driving this car for a full week. So back here, not too much to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and go through it real quick. Legroom is pretty decent. I can fit behind myself, no problem at all. Headroom is actually pretty sufficient as well. The one problem that the Prius Prime does have versus the regular Prius is that there is no middle seat here, just this center console with two cup holders and some storage in here. Not too bad. It does not feel that wide back here, and this armrest doesn't move up or down, so it is really low to rest your arm on it. Again, not too much to talk about back here, but in the trunk is where we're going to have a little bit longer of a discussion.
So back here, the Prius Prime is going to differ a little bit from a regular Prius in terms of styling, though it does keep the hatchback body style that the Prius has had for quite a while. We have these wraparound taillights. Pretty interesting looking at night. I kind of like the way that looks, and everybody has complimented the Prime on this red color. It is really pretty and it's got some nice metallic to it. So I think if you are going to get the Prius Prime, you can either get it in this red, or they do a very bright blue color that is also quite intriguing as well. You do also get this kind of double bubble roof effect. It's kind of interesting. It kind of curves along with the trunk. Just a little bit of interesting styling here. But the one disadvantage of the Prius Prime over the normal Prius is going to be the storage space when I go ahead and open it up. You're going to notice that the battery is going to take up a whole lot of trunk space, meaning that it doesn't start until really, really high up. So if you have big, heavy objects, you're going to have to lift them in here. We have our camera equipment here just to show you how small and how quickly this really does get taken up. I have my little storage cubby thing sent to me by Clevermade to try out for the week, and it's not that tall. I can fit it in the trunk of my Fiesta quite easily, but as you can see here in the trunk of the Prius, it does come just up to the top of where this trunk is going to end. And as it sits, even though it does fit in there, it is going to block that lower glass piece that is going to impede your view out of the window just a little bit. And I did a Trader Joe's run, and they have sort of those taller paper bags that you put in your trunk, and it does cut off your rear visibility a little bit having the trunk be this high up. So yeah, that is one big disappointment that I wish Toyota would have engineered a little bit better in the Prime. You can fold the rear seats back. That'll give you a lot more storage space, but I wish that the trunk was bigger in general. Another weird thing that I noticed is, here's where the charger is stored, underneath this little pretty ungraceful piece here. This is where the storage area is for the charger. It's very, very shallow. You really have to pack it in there, so you kind of have to sit there and make sure the charger goes in. I think that other plugins I've had have had a lot more graceful storage solutions for the charger. I think Toyota may have designed the trunk area of this car and then went, oh no, we forgot to include a place for them to put the charger gracefully, so they came up with this. Not the best, but hey, what can you do? And another interesting thing before I get out and drive this car is that I should tell you this is carbon fiber. Really interesting. I guess they wanted to try and make this tailgate a little bit lighter. It is still quite heavy to go up and down because it has glass, so much glass in it, but carbon fiber is usually the stuff used on Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches, so it is kind of interesting to have it make an appearance here on the Toyota Prius Prime. Now we're going to go out on the road and tell you how the Prime drives.
One of the biggest problems the Prius has always had is that it's not a very nice car to drive. It's always been very, very sloppy in the steering and very slow. This one does 0 to 60 in 10.2 seconds. Yeah, not exactly quick. It develops 121 horsepower combined from the 1.8 liter gas engine and the electric motors, and you never feel like you really even have that much most of the time. Right now I'm driving it around in EV mode. Perfectly quiet, feels like an electric car, which is actually better than a normal Prius. Of course, this being the Prime, having a lot more electric power. So when you put your foot into it, you do get that little bit of surge of electric torque. The only problem is it kind of dies out after a while. It feels very quick from about 0 to 30, and then beyond that, the electric power just sorts to die out. You have a couple of drive modes that you can play around with here. So I have it now in normal mode. You can put it into power mode. Doesn't sound like it would make a big difference in a Prius. It really does, and this is something the Prius has always done with its power mode. It gives you the placebo effect that the throttle is just a lot more involving. So when you put your foot on the throttle, you do get so much more immediate response. So if you've ever driven a Prius, power mode is actually the best way to drive it for me. It makes it feel like you're not in as slow of a vehicle as you really are, although it is kind of just a placebo when you really put your foot into it. Then you can put it into eco mode, which is exactly the opposite. In eco mode, the Prius mode feels completely intolerable, really, really slow. You put your foot down on the gas and it just doesn't want to respond. It feels really, really sluggish in eco mode. So I didn't really drive it around too much in eco mode all week. I've gotten around 57 miles per gallon this week. So eco mode didn't really, I didn't really need it to achieve that MPG. So now when I put my foot down, yeah, it just doesn't want to respond. Normal, power modes are going to be the best modes. So independent of the drive modes, you have your hybrid and EV button that you can switch between. So when you switch into normal mode, which is HV, hybrid vehicle, it'll kind of alternate between the electric motors and the gas engine, depending on what you need. You can push that button again to trigger full-on EV mode, where it will try to use only the electric power if you want to drive around silently and effortlessly. Or you can hold that button and it'll go into what's known as charge mode, where the engine will stay on constantly and charge the batteries up to give you more of an electric range, which is pretty useful considering that it only has 25 miles of electric range. Definitely not the best in the segment. I just recently tested the Honda Clarity. That gets about 48 miles of electric range, and the Chevy Volt is over 50 miles of electric range. So if you're buying your plug-in hybrid vehicle based on how many miles it can travel on electric range, this isn't that good. Although this does get better gas MPG when the engine does kick on over the Clarity. And you can also push this button EV Auto, where it'll kind of determine when the best time to run on EV versus gas engine is. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in its gas engine mode, switch it over to power so that I can feel a little bit of it. You can hear it when it kicks on. It does use a CVT transmission like almost all Toyota hybrid vehicles. It makes all of the nasty CVT kind of drones when you put your foot down on it. It just kind of picks an RPM, grinds there, sits there. Not exactly a pleasant noise, but I will say that even in charge mode when the engine is running and when the battery is dead, I have driven this car when the battery is at complete zero where the electric engine needs to run, it is quieter than the Honda Clarity. The Honda Clarity felt a little bit more like a generator was running in the background. The Prius, its engine can run a little bit more quietly in the background, although when you're driving it around completely silently and effortlessly, the engine is a little bit distracting. Unfortunately, even with the Prime, Toyota really hasn't fixed some of the other problems that I've always had with the Prius, and that is just completely dead steering. It feels really, really sloppy. It's kind of all over the place. You never buy a Prius because of the way it drives, so perhaps I'm just being a little bit overcritical of the car. This was built to do just one thing: get good gas mileage. And I think that owners really don't care about how it drives, but the steering just feels almost delayed. You go to turn in and it just feels like the car is a half step behind you. You never feel like you can actually enjoy this car, which is not true of some of the other plugins I've driven. I think the Kia Niro is actually pretty enjoyable to drive, and the Clarity feels very enjoyable to drive and has a lot more power than this. Over 200 horsepower versus only 121 in this car. So if you want your plug-in to be even just a little bit dynamic and a little bit engaging, this is definitely not the car for you. You can also trigger this B mode here on the drive mode selector. That's going to trigger your regen braking. So when I lift off the throttle now, I really don't have to brake as much. It'll just kind of slowly bring the car to a stop. Regain energy to put in the batteries. I found myself using that a lot actually, because again, the 25-mile range, it just didn't last me very long. If you're going somewhere that's 12 miles away, you're basically going to use it up on the trip there and back. So when I'm shopping for a plug-in, I like to have one with the longest electric range as possible. And other than that, I mean, you're really just not going to buy this for the way it drives. I do have a nice head-up display, giving me a nice display readout of my eco throttle, my miles per hour. The displays up here are pretty good as well. They're right in the middle so that you and the passenger can both see them. This center screen, I've said, is extremely distracting. I don't really like using it while I'm driving. But yeah, the Prius is obviously a below average driving experience. We kind of expecting that, but it does do one thing really well, and that is get those MPGs.
All right, so let's go ahead and price out our 2018 Toyota Prius Prime Advanced. Remember, the Advanced trim is the highest trim level you can get on the Prius Prime. So the opening trim is that Plus trim. It's going to cost you $27,300. Then you can step up to the Premium trim for $29,000, or this, the Advanced trim, for $33,300. And all of those prices do not include a $4,500 tax credit that you will get for buying this car because of its electric range. That's not as much as the full $7,500 that we get in the Honda Clarity, which you can check out that review on our channel. As tested, the price of this car is $34,390. So aside from the processing and handling fee, there's not too many other things that you need to add on top of this, although you do get a lot for your money on this Advanced trim. You get the 10-speaker JBL sound system, you get the parking sensors with the parking system that will park itself and get you out of a parallel spot. You get the head-up display, you get the leather seats, you get that big old screen that comes on the Premium trim, you get blind spot monitoring, parking assist, rear cross traffic alert, and LED fog lights. Not a bad haul. Even the base car will have radar cruise control, lane sensing alert, a smart key, and remote air conditioning controls that can be activated from the key fob. So not a very basic car by any stretch, and in a vacuum, this is not a horrible plug-in hybrid car. It does what it does really well, and that is get good fuel economy. Unfortunately, when you factor in the looks, And when you factor in the way it drives, I know people aren't buying hybrids because they want a sporty driving experience, but come on, Toyota. I've driven the Honda Clarity now, I've driven the Kia Niro plug-in hybrid now, and those just drive like normal vehicles. Make the Prius drive a little better. Give it a little bit better steering, make it feel a little bit more buckled down on the inside, and I think I would like it a lot more. For now, the looks don't seem to be doing anything to stop sales. People are still buying this like crazy, but if it was my money, I would shop around at other plug-in hybrid vehicles.